Let my wisdom envelop your mind, my beloved child, and understand that upon the sacred avenue you are treading, countless connections will seek out your life. But oh, my child, you must remain vigilant to recognize the naked reality that not every hand extended in the midst of a crowd carries the mission to lift you up or guide you. There are hands that seek you out merely to scrutinize, to test whether you stand truly firm in the noble identity of a child chosen by me, or to intentionally drag you into the snares of compromise. Yet, do not allow earthly fear or suspicion to defile your soul, for I myself will bestow upon you sharp spiritual eyes day by day, helping you to see through every glamorous outer facade, clearly discerning every true motive hidden behind the sweet words or hypocritical kindness of the world. The holy light from heaven will illuminate and expose every dark and hidden thing. And if you only know how to place your absolute trust in your Father, you will always feel the divine warning signals vibrating within your intuition, even when mortal reason has not yet had time to explain them. Remember always the golden teachings of the ancient sages as a compass for every turn in your life. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths. Proverbs 3:5-6. When you know how to humble yourself so that my power may lead you, you will never be lost amidst the dusty marketplace of this world. Remember the miraculous story of the prophet Samuel of old. When I sent him to the house of Jesse to anoint the chosen king, when he looked upon the eldest son Eliab, who was handsome in appearance and tall in stature, and thought within himself that this must surely be the Lord's anointed, I stopped him and spoke a decree for all generations. The Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. It was the heart of the little, devout shepherd boy David in the open fields that became the place where I established an everlasting sovereignty. Your life is the same. I did not choose you for the outward glamour according to worldly standards, but because I thoroughly searched the steadfast faithfulness deep within your spirit. Therefore, little child, I will not merely lead you to walk upon simple new paths, but will actively bring you into high and honorable places and sanctuaries, places where your name has never before been mentioned by anyone. Yet the voice of your truth and your magnanimous heart will be recognized and revered by multitudes. That respect does not come at all from your trying to exert yourself to display your abilities to impress mortals, but because my eternal presence with you will automatically radiate a distinct spiritual atmosphere, causing anyone who meets you to pause and pay respectful attention. When your footprints enter, the invisible walls of deceit will be shaken to their very foundations, and the obstructing barriers of evil will be forced to retreat and make way. Understand that this authority absolutely does not originate from the finite forces or resources of mankind, but because you carry with you the seal and ultimate power of the living God. When those miracles manifest on the path of life, I want you to always maintain a profoundly humble heart to recognize that this is not yet the final destination of glory, but merely a stage in the great journey I am leading you through, the journey of transforming your humble life into a holy instrument of life, kindling hope and pouring out the source of healing grace to dark, barren lands where no one has previously dared to courageously set foot. As you become more willing to allow me to lead you deeper into the glorious promised land that I have painstakingly prepared, you will realize with amazement that every single step you place upon the earth carries a grand significance, far exceeding anything the mortal eye can observe or perceive. Every decision, large or small, that you make during this critical hour does not only shape your own destiny and path, but also silently creates a powerful wave of influence, directing the very steps of future generations who will follow after you. That is the reason why this benevolent Father earnestly invites you to be completely vigilant and more solemn than ever before. This is absolutely not the appropriate time for you to indulge in the impulsive, fleeting emotions of the flesh. Nor is it the time for you to hesitate, waver, or doubt the heavenly calling. This is the destined hour for you to courageously march forward with absolute conviction that I, the Almighty, I'm reigning and going before you to clear the way, leveling every mountain of trial and preparing all the necessary resources for your life. All the ups and downs, hurts, or glories you have ever tasted are not at all a random, meaningless chain of events dictated by fate, but are a wondrous sequence of links perfectly connected by the skillful hand of the one who sees through from the beginning to the end of the universe. Just like a holy seed sown and hidden, lying quietly within the heart of the earth throughout a cold, freezing winter, you have been lovingly covered and strictly protected by me during phases that seemed most silent and deadlocked. But it was precisely within that silence that the main taproot of your faith struck deep into the fountainhead of life. And now, the period of gestation is fulfilled. The barren ground is cracking open to signal a new spring, a new glory, and a consummate spiritual life preparing to rise up powerfully, shining radiantly in your life. Cast away all anxiety and quiet your heart to feel the warmth of my breast. My beloved child, and engrave deep within your soul that when you are willing to obey, the flow of heavenly blessings will run forever in your life without ceasing. There are turning points in life that do not come gently like a soft passing breeze, but strike suddenly like a majestic thunderclap tearing through the peaceful earthly sky, right in the moment when your mortal mind remains certain that it is standing firmly within an absolute comfort zone. A powerful movement from the invisible realm creeps in, gently stirring and shaking every foundation, every material support that you thought you held securely in your hands. This divine shaking is absolutely not a vague echo of coincidence, nor is it a temporary illusion of changing emotions. On the contrary, it is the mighty response of the Most High, the one who thoroughly saw and beheld the entirety of both the beginning and the end of the universe before the very first day of your life began. The Holy Scripture of old has sealed that authoritative declaration of mine, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times, things that are not yet done, saying, My counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. Isaiah 46:10. Believe that I have been standing and waiting for you at this very crossroads of destiny, where your heart has undergone enough refinement to become tender and listen. Your soul is vigilant enough to perceive, and your heart is desirous enough not to turn away and disregard the call of your Father. This benevolent Father thoroughly searches all your hidden thoughts and feelings, knowing well that you are utterly exhausted, your strength depleted from tirelessly waiting for divine promises that have not yet manifested visibly before your eyes. I know even the long nights you toss and turn sleeplessly, your mind whirling, torn between the hurtful memories of the past and the fragile hope for the future, between the momentous questions no one on earth can answer and the earnest prayers offered for so long that seem to remain met with total silence. Remember the miraculous story of old regarding the journey of the patriarch Abraham. He had to patiently wait for 25 long, grueling years from the time he received the promise from me concerning an heir, while both he and his wife Sarah were advanced in age and frail in strength, and all hope according to natural means had completely closed. Yet, precisely at the time that seemed most impossible to human reason, I visited them and granted them their son Isaac in inexpressible joy, proving to all generations that my promise is always faithful and perfect. Today, I am also speaking to you such a word of anointing. Now, my little child, courageously open wide your spiritual eyes, for you are standing right before the threshold of the throne of grace, of a grand revelation, something that will shape and completely transform the entire path ahead of your life. The upheavals and transitions about to take place in this season are not merely related to a minor bend in your individual personal story, but more deeply, they represent a momentous nexus in the grand cosmic tapestry of heaven. It is the place where the threads of divine destiny, holy calling, and my eternal promise meet, weaving into one another to begin fashioning a completely new chapter, radiant with the light of glory for your spiritual life. When you are willing to place your complete trust and bow in obedience to my will, you are with your own hands opening up the fountainhead of life, where the streams of blessing and salvation from on high will overflow and never run dry, transforming your humble life into a living witness of the power and boundless love of your Father forevermore. Open wide your spiritual gaze to perceive a wondrous thing taking place. My beloved child, that within the grand plan of heavenly providence, there is a person being drawn close toward your life by my invisible hand. Their appearance, the thoughts suddenly flashing in their mind concerning you, and the intense inner prompting compelling them to change are absolutely not a random series of earthly events of fate. It is I who have actively touched the deepest recesses of their soul, placing their vivid images, sacred memories, and even the unfinished dialogues of the past things that have never truly vanished from my program. Yet, my child, you must understand that, like any mortal on earth, they also possess a free will that I always respect. This means that even when their soul senses the heavenly call, they may still experience hesitation, fear, or even turn back to take another path. For that very reason, this benevolent Father earnestly and urgently calls upon you not to merely stand outside as an indifferent, cold observer, but to courageously step up and become a fierce intercessor for them. The divine intercession that I am requiring of you is absolutely not empty, disjointed words uttered from the lips, but must be a cry reaching the blue heavens, originating from the very depths of a vigilant spirit. That is when you know how to cast aside all selfish calculations and anxieties, courageously standing in the gap, the boundary between them and the dark forces that are trying by every means to drag them far away from the light of salvation. Engrave deep within your soul the solemn warning that I once spoke through the mouth of the prophet of old. I sought for a man among them who would make a wall and stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land, that I should not destroy it, but I found no one. Ezekiel 22:30. Today, amidst a generation full of deceit and apathy, my eyes have spotted you, the faithful child, ready to stand in that very gap, using your faith and love to shield your own life story and that of the one I am guiding. Know that the moment you lift your voice in prayer and obedience, the whole of heaven will immediately reinforce its ranks. The mighty angels standing guard at the invisible boundary are merely waiting for your declaration of conviction to take action. The prayer arising from your devout heart does not only reach my ears, but transforms into a heavenly mandate for the magnificent spiritual warriors to move and wage war to protect you. This is by no means a parable or a metaphor of mankind, but a spiritual reality operating parallel and powerfully with the daily material world. And precisely at that miraculous intersection, the words you speak in faith possess the power to shift the entire course of events. However, my beloved little child, I want you to be exceedingly vigilant to recognize that this work of transformation never takes place in a flat or easy atmosphere. I show you these things beforehand so that you may prepare your mind. The enemy will erect false situations, deceptive and dramatic stories, and stir up old, negative waves of emotion with the ultimate purpose of slowing down progress, causing division, and shaking the resolve of the other person. Those schemes do not necessarily take the form of blatant deceit, but they often disguise themselves with extreme sophistication under the guise of weakness needing shelter, or sweet apologies for past mistakes to hold on to the old self. If you do not use the discernment of my spirit to perceive with razor sharpness, you will easily be swept into the chaotic, emotional vortex of the earth and inadvertently aid the delay, harming my holy program. Because of this, your steadfastness and unswerving faithfulness are the great key that unlocks the door of glory. Do not allow the volatile circumstances before your eyes to make you react hastily according to the flesh, nor try to seize control using earthly means or maneuvers that I have not appointed. Instead, anchor your soul firmly to my eternal promise, keeping your heart always pure and unchangingly peaceful. Remember the magnificent chronicle of the life of the prophet Joseph, though he was hated, harmed, and sold into slavery in a foreign land by his own flesh and blood brothers, and then had to endure injustice reaching the heavens, being imprisoned in a dark dungeon for many long years. My providential hand never for a single moment left him. I used those very critical turns in those years of testing and refining in the darkness to forge a great man, so that at the exact divine appointed time, Joseph stepped out of prison, walking straight into the position of Supreme Prime Minister, possessing the power and wisdom to save an entire nation and preserve the holy lineage from a horrific famine. The Holy Scripture of old has sealed that truth for all eternity through the affirmation, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are the called according to his purpose. Romans 8:28. The great thing that I am about to perform through your surrendered life in this season also carries a stature and a deep, far-reaching influence exceeding by many miles all your narrow expectations and thoughts. Your task at this moment is to place your absolute trust entirely in your Father, standing firm in intercession and patiently pressing forward, so that no hasty action of the flesh can disrupt the miraculous and glorious process of creation that I am reserving for you. My beloved child, this is the sacred place where you are chosen and called to become a fortified, unyielding wall in the mission of daily intercession. When you kneel to offer your prayers up to the throne of grace, do not selfishly pray only for benefits and good fortune to happen to your own self, but earnestly plead that the radiant light of truth may completely cover their life, breaking and shattering every chain of darkness that is intentionally besieging and obscuring their mind. Pray with all your spiritual capacity that they may be granted extraordinary courage to bravely step out of the cozy comfort zone of the flesh, and to perceive with razor sharpness that the temporary values they have painstakingly clung to for so long have in truth dried up, no longer bringing the true sap of life to the soul. And above all evil, pray without ceasing that their spiritual ears may be open to hear my gentle yet authoritative voice more clearly than the countless other clamorous, enticing sounds of the world out there. At the same time, this benevolent Father wants you to have a steadfast mindset, preparing your soul before two possibilities that may occur. Either they will step forward powerfully in complete faith, or they will shrink back, fleeing because of the earthly fear surrounding them. If they courageously advance according to the heavenly call, you must be ready to open wide your arms of love to receive and support them, absolutely never confining or judging them in the mistakes of the past. Conversely, if they lose heart and turn back to take another path, you must still keep your faith and your stance firm as a masterpiece of bedrock, because my eternal promise is never dependent upon or limited by the will of a single individual upon the earth. I am the Almighty, possessing countless miraculous ways far beyond human understanding to perfectly complete the great work I have begun in your life. The core and most important thing for you at this moment is absolutely not to allow your heart to be poisoned by bitter resentment, despondent disappointment, or blame toward fate, because those dark, negative emotions of the flesh will act like an obstructing wall, blocking the flow of blessing and the source of saving grace from overflowing into your life. My little child, never allow your worldly eyes to fixate solely upon imperfect people or the volatile circumstances around you. Whenever the storms of life arise, lift your head high with pride, directing your gaze of glory straight toward the Most High, the one who has appointed and ruled over all things since the creation of the world. As the magnificent praise handed down for all generations by the sages in the Holy Scripture declares, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. Psalm 121, 1-2. Once you maintain that unswerving gaze of faith toward the heavenly throne, your soul will be anchored in the immortal kingdom, completely unshaken and unmoved by what the eyes of the flesh see in physical reality. I am not looking for a passive servant, but am seeking in you a complete, intimate, and sacred cooperation. That is absolutely not a cooperation in timidity or fear before the forces of wickedness, but in resilient faith, not in the haste or rashness of the flesh, but in a high state of spiritual vigilance. This requires you to courageously surrender the selfish need to know every detail of the future, and instead, be willing to trust and walk step by step according to the lamp of truth that I shine daily. Because, my child, it is precisely within those steps of commitment, full of peril yet overflowing with faith, that the grand miracle of heaven is truly born. Understand thoroughly a sacred thing, that no warning or sign from on high is sent to your life at this moment without reason. Every single message, every gentle whisper you are receiving carries a clear ultimate purpose, perfectly designed to awaken your spirit, guide your steps, and prepare within your heart a profound inner strength before the mighty things about to take place. The words I speak today are not mere advice according to human philosophy, but are a sharp spiritual strategy anointed from eternity, because on the path ahead, the steps you are about to place upon the earth will no longer be testing steps, groping in the darkness, but are destined steps, sealing and deciding an entire new season, overflowing with the glory of your life. Remember the miraculous story of old when the Israelites prepared to enter the city of Jericho before the fortified fortress, impregnable by human strength. They did not wage war with swords, spears, or mortal schemes, but completely obeyed my divine strategy, keeping their hearts pure, vigilant, and silently marching around the city for 6 days, so that on the 7th day, when the trumpet sounded, along with the shout of faith, those fortified walls immediately collapsed into ruin to the astonishment of all nations. Your present life is also standing before such a destined battle. In this very hour, the spiritual atmosphere surrounding your life is becoming dense and compressed, like the holy, pregnant silence before a cataclysm of grace pours down. Even when you have not yet seen any visibly clear sign in your daily ordinary life, your vigilant spirit can still sense an invisible yet incredibly powerful weight. That is because the whole of heaven is concentrating all its divine resources into a destined intersection, the place where my great holy will is preparing to touch directly and intervene in the reality of your life. At this wondrous point of convergence, every hidden corner of your being will be exposed completely before the light, from your unswerving faithfulness and steadfastness proven through fire, to even your weak vulnerabilities and deep emotional wounds that for so long you have never had the courage to face. Do not ever fear or run away from that bare truth, because this benevolent Father never exposes you to humiliate or condemn you, but to embrace, heal, keep, and restore you into a pristine new vessel, radiant with grace. I have thoroughly known how many times in the past you came very close to the destination of victory, only to shrink back in dismay, retreating simply because of the critical, judgmental voices of the people around you. How many times you prepared to seize the glorious opportunity I granted, but stop regretting it due to a complex of insecurity and doubt in your own ability, and how many times you were about to open your mouth to courageously declare the truth, but chose to remain silent in resentment out of fear of the reaction and isolation of the selfish crowd. Now, I stand here looking deep into your eyes and majestically decree, this time, my beloved child will surely not turn back. This time, my grand power will envelop and support you, and will not allow any hesitation or timidity of the flesh to hand the advantage or victory over to the enemy, but for that mighty thing to be gloriously realized. You must completely agree, willingly stepping out of your narrow comfort zone starting this very day, and firmly grasp the powerful hand of your Father to together write an immortal spiritual chronicle. Therefore, my heart's beloved child, stand firm with patience in the posture of a victor, even when all external signs and circumstances seem to go against and do not align with what I have decreed. You must absolutely never forget that great promises of a holy lineage were given to the patriarch Abraham, which took 25 long years amidst a barren desert to manifest. Yet throughout that entire journey, he remained resilient in trust, without a single doubt, because he thoroughly knew who the faithful one was who gave the promise to his life. Your true faith must never be built upon or rely on temporary progress that can be seen with the eyes of the flesh, but must be anchored to my perfect, eternal faithfulness that never changes. The eyes of your mortal flesh may see everything unfolding very slowly, but my heavenly eyes see everything operating perfectly to burst into light at my perfect, holy, appointed time.